Do you think sometimes additional needs is often confused as bad behaviour?
Yeah, I am 1,000,000%. Behaviour is their way of communicating. But imagine doing that all day and holding on and holding on and holding on. And then when you get home, it's like that Coke bottle effect.
Of course.
Where you're in your safe place with the people that know you and you just explode.
A child does not need a diagnosis in order to access support at school.
No, behaviours don't change just because it's on paper.
Yeah. What pressure are you guys under right now in school?
I don't think there's a word that can describe. Maybe 3 classes might be sharing one teaching assistant.
Do you see a lot of parents like reaching breaking point?
Yeah, it's heart-wrenching. Because again, I think parents wait until it's too hard before asking for the help. Home life can be really, really challenging. They then come to support from us when it's reached its absolute peak.
What changes do you think desperately need to happen in order for you guys to have less pressure, parents to have more support, children to have better help?
I think the changes I would like.
Before we continue, I would like to quickly talk to you about my Lean with Leanne fitness and health app. I created the Lean with Leanne app to help support women with their training and nutrition throughout every single chapter of their life. The app provides structured training plans for the gym or at home for women, including programs for hormonal balance, pre- and postnatal training, building confidence on the gym floor, and sustainable weight loss. Programs that work with female bodies, not against them. You get a fully personalised training and nutrition plan, as well as recipe ideas and a library of 20 to 30 minute on-demand fitness classes that you can do in the comfort of your own home. Some of your favourite workouts, such as Zumba, core conditioning, and more, making exercise not only accessible to everyone, but also enjoyable. So whether you're looking to finally lose weight while still enjoying a flexible, comfortable life, whether you want to build your confidence, rebuild your strength after having a baby, or simply feel confident in your own skin, then the Lean with Leanne app will provide you with everything in one place. And I am giving all podcast listeners an exclusive free trial to the Lean with Leanne app. So if you're interested, head to the link in the show notes to get your free trial now. Hello and welcome back to your favourite women's health podcast, We Missed The Memo. We are here on a mission to help every woman feel seen, heard, educated, but more importantly, have the confidence to feel empowered to advocate for herself and her family. So we are going to be bringing you all of the topics, answer all of your questions, and bring you all the expert advice that you need to live your best life. But the only way this mission can happen is if more women see the podcast. So please make sure that you like and subscribe. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Please leave us a glowing review so that more people can see us. And make sure you share an episode so that we can make sure that all the women never miss the memo again. Today, I am really excited to invite a very special person to my podcast. Last week, we had 2 amazing ladies, Julie and Danielle, share the realities of navigating motherhood with children who have special educational needs. And today, we are going to be discussing more on that topic from an education point of view. So I would love to introduce my bestie and SENDCo of Roselands, Hannah Dillon. Welcome to the pod. Miss Dillon.
Miss Dillon.
Have you ever done a podcast before?
No.
I'm going to get a name for myself because I'm popping everyone's cherry on the podcast front.
Absolutely. Only an old-fashioned Lean with Leanne Facebook Live. That's the only thing I've ever done.
Lockdown.
Yes.
About Molly, wasn't it? About your bubba.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll have to do another episode on stuff like that soon.
We'll see how this goes.
Yeah, see how you feel. Us anxiety Annies, so if we cry. I don't think Jack's ever seen me not cry on an episode, maybe one. Okay, so before we get into the SENDCo world, can you tell the listeners a little bit about you as Han and a little bit about you as Miss Dillon?
Yeah, so I have got 2 little ones, Molly, who's 6, and Teddy, who is about 20 months. I don't know when he stopped doing months, but he's about 20 months. And they are just my everything.
Delicious.
I've been a teacher for 15 years and a SENDCo for maybe 8 of those, I think. My experience is a lot around early years, so reception, birth to 5, that's kind of my bag, but then also the SEND stuff. And over those 15 years, I've just had my hands in lots of different pies in terms of like educational, career-wise, but going strong as a SENCo, and I love it.
Lush. Have you always wanted to be a teacher?
Do you know what? I didn't know what I wanted to be. I actually had no clue. Flunked my A-levels awfully because I got a boyfriend, so that's top tip there. And I saw a childcare course at college and I thought, I'll give it a go. And then each step of the way, the tutors would say, I think you should go on and do this, or you should go on to do that. And then before I knew it, I was doing like a childcare degree. And then it kind of opened up the paths of maybe doing like a PGCE, which is a teaching qualification. So I kind of was gently guided into it by other people.
Because I wasn't put it in your path.
I wasn't sure. I didn't know what my thing was going to be, but I knew that I loved being around children. So,
and it's all worked out in the end.
Yeah.
So what actually is a SENCo?
A SENCo, in a nutshell, is basically a member of staff within a school. It's like a legal requirement. Every school has to have one. They have to have a certain qualification, and you are accountable for ensuring that every child with an additional need is getting the provision and the support that they need, and it's basically making sure that the barriers to their learning are reduced as much as possible. That's like the nitty-gritty of it, but there's so much more before that. You know, we're there supporting children before a need is diagnosed, and then helping them with their onward journeys as well. So really, it's just being that port of call and knowing the processes, the policies, the procedures, and what can be done for the most vulnerable children in school.
So when you say additional need, obviously I think when people think about SEN, automatically you think autism, ADHD, but actually it's a way bigger, diverse spectrum than that. So what do you class as an additional need?
So really, when we're thinking about additional needs, there's a few different categories. So it could be cognition and learning. That could cover anything from dyslexia, dyspraxia, children like dyscalculia. There's lots of different, even like a global developmental delay might come under that, as well as other things too. Social, emotional, mental health. So that's where things like anxiety, maybe ADHD, maybe trauma, things like that might come under. What else have we got? Physical and sensory. So any type of physical, like medical need, sensory needs, which there's a huge kind of profile of. And then communication and language, which actually things like autism sit under, as well as speech needs, things like that. So there's a huge array, but you're totally right. People just think autism, ADHD, because that's all you see online at the moment, but it's massive. And in terms of kind of explaining what an additional need is, I would just say that could be anything under those umbrellas that are stopping children either accessing education or their usual kind of life routines, and they'll need additional support for. So yeah, it's a huge span, like massive.
And I suppose every child is different, aren't they?
Yeah.
So they present in different ways.
Yeah.
They have different additional needs.
Yeah.
So you have to be adapting all of the time within your job.
Yeah.
What is like your day-to-day role? You obviously work at a local school, Roseland.
Oh God. Yeah.
So what does a day in the life of Hannah?
Every day is totally different. I think the unfortunate thing about the SENCo role is that it's really paperwork based. And so things like referrals to medical professionals, referrals to like things like mental health professionals, getting additional support in, managing paperwork, helping parents identify needs, monitoring that the right thing is in place in the classroom, but even down to writing all the policies and reviewing them and making sure they're in place. And I don't think people know that actually in the SENCo role, all of the medical and health needs come under that as well. So if you've got 5 children in the school that have got EpiPens, you've got to make sure that all of the staff are trained. You've got to make sure all the plans and the pens are accessible and in date.
Wow.
So it is really quite big. So it's anything from supporting parents at the very beginning of their journey where they feel like something's not quite right. They don't know what it is. They don't know where to go. And then helping them maybe all the way through to parents whose child's needs are so significant that they need support applying for special educational provision, and then like everything in between.
Wow.
So it's a lot.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot. So do you find that you are the first port of call for an additional need? Because my perception was that maybe that would be a GP.
Yeah. I think parents always come to school. I think school, they've got that daily face-to-face with them, and we're much easier to get hold of than the GP. We know their children well. Parents know their children the best, obviously, but it's easier for them to come and talk to us. But also I feel like whereas GPs have that information around health, we have that information around like education, and we've kind of got it all mixed in together. So it means that we can signpost, we can give them advice. But yeah, I think parents often will come to schools first, even if it's in that crisis moment of, oh my God, I don't know what to do. Yeah.
And what kind of children are the parents coming to you for help with? And
I think in the most recent years, things like autism, ADHD are on the rise in terms of children, like parents seeing behaviours that they're unsure about, whether that's because, again, the awareness is rising massively, you know, things on social media. If your child does one of these 10 things, then it's likely that. So it's kind of getting parents' anxieties up. But also, I feel like as schools and parents, we're learning a lot more about masking. So it means that I think we're kind of seeing those little behaviours that might be an inkling that there's something else going on.
Yeah.
I feel like those neurodiverse needs are, as the years have gone on, like the numbers are rising for whatever reason. But although it is a mix, there's a lot, but
Lots
I've
of
noticed that.
things.
Yeah.
So has SEN needs changed over the years? I mean, you mentioned that obviously it's on the rise, maybe because of more awareness, but what about the needs of these children? Do you think that's changed?
I don't think the needs have changed, but I think the volume of children needing support has changed. And like COVID was a massive catalyst for like a couple of different reasons. So wait lists were so long that the children weren't getting like really early support where they needed it, say in nursery, that might help support a need much quicker, or, you know, give parents the advice that they need. Some children really struggled in COVID, and it actually acted as a bit of a catalyst for a need. So where children loved coming into school during COVID, where they had a class of 10 because everyone else was learning at home, and then being thrown back into a class of 30, the school's busy, you're all mixing. So like the anxiety, the social skills, I think that's acted as a bit of a catalyst. And then year on year, we are getting more children come through our door in reception who've got needs. And I think, again, COVID took away a lot of those experiences that they needed to practice skills. So,
Of course.
you know, whether that is going to come, they just need a bit of time. But I think COVID was a bit of a turning point.
Yeah, interestingly, actually, we had Dr. Phoebe, the child chiropractor, on last week, and she said that due to COVID, that a lot of the milestones were moved back, so that because they were seeing a delay.
To account for it, yeah.
So it's really interesting, and I suppose if, you know, from us all being in lockdown, if you had a new baby, that baby wasn't around people, so the social skills are delayed as a result.
Yeah, my little niece, who's not so little now, but during COVID, she was about 18 months. And when we were allowed back outside again, she used to say, people, and get really frantic when she saw people, because she was used to us saying, keep your distance. But yeah, it's, and things like, children get a 1-year developmental review, they get a 2-year, 3-month developmental review. And in COVID times, sometimes that might have been done over the phone without seeing a child. But a lot of people talk about that being missed. And those are like the very, very, very starting points of identifying maybe like a developmental delay, or maybe they're not talking as soon. And so it just means there's been a bit of catch up.
Yeah.
And I don't think the wait lists and timeframes have really recovered since COVID, even though it was however many years ago now.
I know,
so
it's scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you talk about like delay, do you think there's a bit too much pressure on kids having to hit certain milestones at a certain age? Because I guess some children just take their time, some children develop certain things quicker than others. You know, a lot of kids might run and never crawl, or talk fluently at 2, but maybe take extra time to get there. That's not necessarily an SEN need, is it?
No, and every child is completely different. I think as a parent, oh my goodness, I'm like the worst person at it, especially being a SENDCo, but comparing your child to other children is really, really difficult. And I think what makes it hard is we have an education system where children have to get to a certain point at a certain time. And as teachers, we have to make sure we're getting children there. And in reception, for example, you might have a child starting who's 5 on the 1st of September, but you might have a child who was 3 the week before starting school. So that alone like makes a huge difference, but they're all in the same class, they're having to move at the same pace, and actually, you know, a lot of children get there, but I think as a parent it's really hard not to make those comparisons.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
that must be really hard as a teacher to try and navigate a classroom where you've got like a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old and the developmental gap is really big there, and trying to teach them the same thing. Like, how do you do that?
It is a really difficult task, and it's all about adapting. So like you take your core learning, whatever it might be, counting to 10, and you just find ways to adapt it kind of up or adapt it down or sideways or whatever you need so that everyone can access it. And I think the good thing about our education system is that in reception there's a lot of play, so it's not a big hard hitting jump for the children to start with, so you can kind of weave that in. But yeah, I think you notice it more in that first year, the difference between some of the children, but they do get there and they kind of get into the groove of it. But it's a bit carnage.
Yeah,
sometimes.
I can imagine. You get home like
just sit in a blank room. Yeah, bless them.
Oh, cuties. Yeah, so you mentioned about lockdown having an effect on potential additional needs. Do you think other things in like our modern society are contributing to it? For example, mobile phones, screen time, advances in modern medicine. I know I had a friend who was within teaching who mentioned that now that science is so advanced, a lot of children are born much younger, sometimes prematurely, and they can keep them alive, and sometimes that can have a knock-on effect to certain elements of brain development. Do you think those things are contributing? Yeah,
I've never actually thought about that in terms of like medicine. Like, and from a personal point of view, like my daughter was 6 weeks early, and what would that have looked like 100 years ago? It's difficult because obviously I'm not a health professional, I haven't done any research, but I can talk about like my observations, and I think technology is changing children. You can see how fraught and distressed they get when they haven't got access to technology, but also just the way they use it. So like these games where they touch and they instantly get a response, like that's not real life. You have to try hard at things, and sometimes something won't happen instantly. You have to be a bit resilient. But I think you often see in children that there's that lack of resilience or patience or regulation because they're used to things happening now when they're playing games and things. And unfortunately, you know, there might be things that are substituted through technology, like children using a screen for a bedtime story or, you know, things like that. Whereas actually back in the day, read the books.
You'd read the book.
Yeah.
I used to love a book.
Yeah.
It's really difficult, isn't it? Because this might be more secondary school based, but you don't want your kids to have a screen. You don't want to be contributing to, I mean, as someone who has ADHD, the dopamine hit of the scrolling or the game time or whatever, and the creating the inability to, you know, have attention for a long period of time, because like you say, these things are so go, response straight away. But then you also don't want your child to be in a situation where they don't have the same things the other children have.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to find a balance for parents, isn't it?
Yeah.
The other thing is, though, the things designed for children are so overstimulating.
Yeah.
The brightness of the TV shows, the music, everything. Like, I find myself, like, staring at it, almost going into a trance.
Yeah.
So, like, what's the best thing parents can do to try and minimise it?
I think you just need to have really clear boundaries and know, you know, I say to a lot of my parents, like, you're not here to be their best friend. obviously that's always your goal, is to have that relationship with your child, but sometimes you need to just remember that you're there to parent. So whereas you might not want to say, no, time's up, we're finishing, to avoid the kickoff, as their parent and with their best interest, I think it's just about being firm. But actually, like, there are some programs and things that we even use in schools, like as part of our maths teaching. We use number blocks because the concepts and things are so fantastic, and they're just like, they're really displayed well. So I think if you're mindful about what the children are using, and you can be clear about timings, I think there's some research that talks about like what a good amount of time is. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but yeah, I just think parents need to be clear about what they, you know, why they want them to use it, and what, and also like not leaving children using tablets and things unsupervised. I think that's a massive thing.
Yeah, that's like a safeguarding thing as well, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's hard because you know that you're going to deal with the kickoff because it's addictive for kids. And we know that because without thinking, we reach for our phone and we start scrolling
all the time.
You know, for a child, they don't have that barrier to stop them doing that. So they need you to do that for them. Yeah.
So reduce the screen time, guys.
Oh, gosh, I know.
What are the earliest signs that a teacher may notice that something is not quite neurotypical?
Yeah, well, the good thing, again, in schools is that we are constantly kind of tracking the children's progress, even down to like how many spellings they got each week, how many times tables, and then more so, you know, their reading progress, their maths progress. So if it was like an academic or a cognitive difficulty, quite quickly that could be picked up, and we have processes in which if we notice a bit of a pattern, might express to parents, monitor it for a little bit, and then we can jump in when we think, you know, I've done X, Y, and Z, it's not improving, I feel like there might be a need there. When it comes to maybe like social, emotional, mental health, neurodiversity, sometimes it can be difficult. I think sometimes, definitely in the younger years, the behaviours you might see could be age-related. So it's almost like a bit of a wait it out, offer support, kind of do the little things and see if it helps. Things like the way that children express their anxiousness, if they're wanting a lot of control over things, sometimes that can be them masking the fact that there is a need there and they're finding the world really confusing. So it can be a lot of different things. It can be in their progress, it can be in how they're interacting with other children, or even just how they're managing the routine. If everybody else is following instructions, but you have a child that kind of looks around as a little bit confused, I think as a teacher, you have a whole year where you get to know these children phenomenally well. So you pick up on those little things, and chatting to the parents, it's sometimes children are quite complex and it is very hard to pick up on, but some things kind of jump out at you.
That's so interesting because, again, there's so many different like factors when it comes to additional needs. I think for me and a lot of people listening, you always assume it's, are they verbal? Are they non-verbal? Are they lining things up in a row? Are they walking on their tiptoes? Like they're like the common things.
Everyone's just primed to look out for like neurodiversity. And there's so much more than that. There is so much more. Like language, we've had a lot of training around like language disorders and things like that, and how to pick that up on, because actually not being able to follow an instruction could be due to auditory processing, it could be their receptive language, it could be neurodiversity, and everything else is so overstimulating, so I can't really stop to listen in what you're doing. There's so much.
It's no wonder parents are so anxious, because I'm thinking, if I have a child, am I supposed to be looking out for all of these things that everyone's telling us about? Like, are they doing this and are they doing that? Like, at what point is some of it just normal behaviour and some of it not? For example, you know, the walking on the tiptoes is a big one, isn't it? But when kids are excited and stuff, they walk on their tiptoes. It doesn't mean they're autistic.
Or something muscular, you know? I just, again, because of the world that we live in and the fact that, you know, constantly, oh, here's a life in the day of my 9-month-old baby who's walking around the room and talking in sentences. Like, that doesn't help you as parents. But I think that's why those developmental reviews and then when they start school, you have regular parents' evenings, they're there to almost put that reassurance in parents. You know, if the professionals are giving you that reassurance, as long as you're not seeing anything that's really like waving red flags at home, I would use that as reassurance.
Yeah.
And we're really lucky, especially in Torbay, like there's a wonderful health like visitor service. So if you have any worries, there's drop-in clinics you can take your babies to. So don't sit in that
Spiral.
worry. That's the worst thing
From
to do.
TikTok.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
Is your child meeting these 5 things?
Yeah.
They're autistic.
Yeah.
No, they're not.
Awful.
Yeah, don't get your advice on TikTok.
No.
You mentioned about masking.
Yeah.
Is that something that is more common with girls? And what does masking look like?
So interesting, my school had some amazing training from our educational psychologist about masking like last half term. So I've learnt a lot about that recently. And I don't think it's more common in girls. I think girls are better at it. So they're harder to like
Nail down.
Harder to figure out what's going on. Masking is basically things that a child and adult might do to almost disguise their neurodiverse needs to fit in with neurotypical people. So it's literally what it says, kind of pretending and hiding behind a mask. And it is exhausting for a child or an adult. So it could be like forcing eye contact when all they want to do is look away because they see everyone else is doing it, rehearsing scripts about, what they're going to say to other people, how they're going to answer questions, things like suppressing stimming. And with girls, at our training, we were talking about the fact that they've even, some children got it down to a fine art where they are mimicking exact body language. So if I was masking now, I'd have my head tilted like you have. I'd have my legs crossed. I might have something in, because if I do exactly as you do, you won't figure out that this isn't me, and that I find those things difficult. So it can be down to as little things as really mimicking the tiniest kind of body movement, facial expression. And imagine doing that all day.
Yeah, exhausting.
And I think, so the schools will say, we don't see that here. Like, we see someone who's doing everything they should and following all the routines and behaving well. But imagine doing that all day and holding on and holding on and holding on. And then when you get home, it's like that Coke bottle effect,
of course,
where you're in your safe place with the people that know you and you just explode. And I think that is how the masking is almost like unfurled, because when children are at home and feel completely relaxed, parents just talk about children that are dysregulated from the minute they walk out of the school gates.
Yeah.
They're dysregulated. They find it so hard to manage. And I just can't imagine that being your life.
Your
and
life
I think,
every day.
Yeah. And unless schools are educated around masking, parents will get the message, they're not like that at school. We don't see the problem, therefore we're not going to, do anything about it.
Now you guys have had the training at Roselands. Is it a situation where if a parent comes to you and says, this is what we're dealing with at home, and you are saying, well, at school, that's totally different, it's almost like, right, we need to monitor if this is a masking behaviour or not, and then you put a system in place for observing that?
Yeah, well, I think if a parent is saying this is what we're getting the minute we leave the school gates, if they talk about behaviours that are linked to neurodiversity at home that are having an impact on the child's life, at our school, we don't necessarily feel like we have to wait. So there's things that we can be doing in school anyway that will help support a child at home. And for us, that's not off limits. And I think maybe with different families, different areas, different schools, that might be a bit of a barrier, but it shouldn't be. So, like, for example, we've got lots of children who, they do wonderfully at school, and we really wouldn't know that there's a struggle. But at the end of every day, they might have 15 minutes out of class to have like a sensory break, like a wind down, a calm down, to almost like just suppress and
regulate their nervous system
and get out of the busyness and kind of put all that to bed before they then go home. Or things like pastoral support to help them learn about their emotions, how to notice when they're calm, when they're not, what to do about it, because just because we don't see it doesn't mean that they don't need it.
Yeah.
I think that would be a big tip for parents, that if they have a child that they feel's masking at home, there are things that schools can do in their day.
Yeah.
And also lots of advice they can give to parents as well. But it's really like prevalent at the moment. We're finding more and more out about it.
When you got into teaching, did you ever think you would be learning like the complexities of child psychology and behaviour and social care?
No.
Because essentially this is way beyond teaching, isn't it?
Or how to change a stoma bag or administer like insulin for diabetes. And you know, it's, we're in schools, they talk about loco parentis, I think is the word, like we are there in place of the parents, that's our role. And just over the years that's got bigger and wider, but it's what we do. I don't think people realise. Yeah, it is.
Like teaching is a stressful job. Having trained most of Roseland's staff, I know that everyone is stressed anyway, let alone having the responsibility of, you know, life-saving things, EpiPens, sensory needs, things that are really affecting children's lives, mental health. Like, how do you cope with that? Well, we don't.
We don't.
We run and we cry.
Yes, and we get a Diet Coke at the end.
Yeah.
I think, again, it's very much based in the schools that you work with. Like at the moment in my school, there's like a phenomenal network of like leadership, and everyone's really, really very supportive. Even if you want to, there's access to counselling or access to supervision, which is like what we would call like that space where you can just talk to someone like a third party and just kind of have that opportunity to get things off your chest. And if things are too much, like you need to find that voice and say, I'm struggling with this.
Yeah, I bet a lot of parents don't know that, because I never knew that you could access that via school if you are having trouble with your children and struggling with it.
Yeah.
So that's really important to know.
Definitely if you're in a safeguarding role as well, that's huge.
Yeah. What signs should parents look for in their children? Like, say a parent doesn't necessarily know what an additional need might look like. What would be like a red flag, so to speak?
So if we're thinking about, if you think about school in general, whether it's like an academic need or they're struggling with masking and they're seeing it, you know, at home, I think a lot of it you might see in terms of like the attitude going to school. It might even start in the morning, if they're getting really anxious, talking about tummy aches or feeling, you know, talking about all these physical symptoms, if they're refusing to go to school, or maybe there's a lot of dysregulation after school. Sometimes that would make me think that there's something going on during the day that's just too challenging for them, whether it's cognitively they're finding the work too hard, they're comparing themselves to everyone else, they can't keep up, or whether it's socially or even sensory, like the environment. So I would almost look out for their behaviours changing, and we talk a lot about behaviour being communication, like that's massive, and I think sometimes people forget that, but those little the worries or the meltdowns or the tantrums, they can be speaking volumes. So if anything changes in terms of how your child is and their personality and their character, I would take that seriously and look into it and just see if it's because something in the school day is triggering too much.
And
difficult.
What about, let's talk about neurodiversity, like, I mean, obviously the two everyone knows is autism and ADHD. What would be some signs that potentially that is where we're going with a diagnosis?
So with like neurodiversity, you can look at the speech, language and communication. One of the factors of that maybe people might know and not know is social communication. So like communicating within those social like situations. And sometimes you can see that from children as young as 2 or 3. Can they have like a back and forth conversation where they listen to what someone's telling you and then respond appropriately? Or are they taking the conversation on their own train about Teletubbies? And actually, no matter how much you kind of prop in, ask them questions, they are on their own little narrative. So I think social communication sometimes is a bit of a flag. Emotional regulation. I think sometimes for children who are neurodiverse, how they're feeling is so overwhelming and they can't make sense of it. And then they also really struggle to regulate themselves as well. But also, again, socially, not being able to read the emotions of other children. So if I give someone in the playground a whack and then I'm confused as to why they don't want to play with me after, I mean that sounds like most 4-year-olds, but if they're still doing that when they're 8, 9, 10, and again, it's really hard because those early years, like 0 to 5 or beyond, a lot of those things you would be seeing anyway because they're little and they're learning. So maybe if it's something that's long-standing and actually is starting to make their days difficult. But yeah, definitely kind of speech and language, that emotional regulation, those are things maybe. And I think sometimes you would notice with starting school, the routine is very structured. And if children struggle with that routine or changes in the routine, coming away from something that they want to do something they've been asked to do, again, a lot of 4-year-olds don't want to do that. But the lines are really blurred. But there's a lot of little things you could look out for.
Maybe the message is to like not jump
Chill.
to feeling anxious if they're not, communicating properly at 4, because like you say, they are still learning. But if it's something that's still a hurdle in, age 6, 7, 8, then maybe that's when the discussion needs to happen. Do you think sometimes additional needs is often confused as bad behaviour and vice versa?
Yeah, I am 1,000,000%. And especially if you maybe haven't got the understanding, haven't got the training, or maybe you haven't got the patience to sit and unpick a situation. But like I was saying before, like communication, behaviour is their way of communicating. And if a child is finding something so overwhelming, like being in the supermarket, I think that's your classic, isn't it? A child lying on the floor, like having a screaming tantrum. If you're a child with neurodiversity, sorry, get my teeth in, and you walk through a supermarket, you've got hordes of people, you've got those awful strip lights that give anyone a headache. The sound is like, because it's just a big empty shell, like the sound of the building is crazy. You've got things you can look at, but you're not allowed to touch. Like it's a really overstimulating environment. But then your child has a tantrum because you've asked them to sit down in the trolley and they want to stand up, and it's like game over. But actually, maybe that is because there's something there they're finding overwhelming. So yeah, definitely.
I get that in the gym.
Oh my God, yeah.
The music, the banging, the people, the noise, and I'm like, I can't handle it.
Yeah, and the world, I think there's a phenomenal video. I'll try and remember the link, so maybe you can put it on.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes.
It's about, it's a child-centered video, so it's for children, about what life is like with autism and explaining how the brain works, and just thinking about how confusing the world might be and trying to keep a lid on it all the time. Of course, you're going to see behaviours, tantrums, meltdowns, whatever you want to call them. So yeah, I do think quite often people don't see past the behaviour and understand, that that's the child telling you something. Like they need something from you, but they can't verbalise it.
Yeah, that's the only way they know how. Yeah. What is one thing parents might be punishing their child for that could in fact be a sign that they're struggling? I'm guessing like a kick-off like that.
Yeah, I think so. And you know what? Children are clever. Like there are plenty of times where they realise, I'm choosing to do this. And again, you need to know your child. So even at school, there's situations where we're trying to unpick, like, have they learned that if they do these behaviours then this will happen? Maybe. But also if there are behaviours and dysregulations, that I think it's just about taking the time to unpick it rather than jumping to conclusions and thinking, oh, do you know what? That's,
bad behaviour,
just bad behaviour. And also like that anxiety as well. I've got a tummy ache, so I don't think I want to do that. Actually, that might be their way of telling you that they're feeling worried about something, but they just don't know how to label it. I would just say parents just need to be mindful of what your child is communicating to you.
And think about it on more of a deeper level, because I guess we've been conditioned to just believe, tell them off if they're being naughty and praise them if they're being good. But actually, why are they being naughty? Is there a deeper meaning behind it? And does there need to be a bit more of a more emotional based conversation?
Yeah, and at schools, a lot of schools at the moment are kind of moving from the behavioural approaches to more like of a relational approach. And I think Everyone talks about gentle parenting and it gets a bit of bash sometimes because we think it's a bit wishy-washy. But if we're taking those relational approaches, you can use any situation like that as a teaching moment for a child. So you're feeling like this is how it feels, this is what we're going to do about it. But please don't whack Tommy over the head with a brick. It's not nice.
Yeah.
So you can still put the boundaries in place and teach them what they're not going to do. And maybe there's time to, you need to sit and have a think about that because that wasn't right. You need to calm down. But we need to teach children those skills.
And actually that makes them emotionally aware then, doesn't it? And I think, a lot of us probably grew up.
Go and sit on the step.
Yeah, not understanding, expressing that we're angry or anxious or why we physically feel the way we do, and it's based on our emotions. So that's never a bad thing, is it?
No.
If someone is suspecting that maybe their child has additional needs or special educational needs, what is the first process? Who do they talk to at school?
So if your child is in school, I think a lot of people feel you need to come to the SENDCo first. That's not necessarily the case. Not that we're like gatekept and people can't access us, but the teachers actually have a huge wealth of knowledge. They've had a lot of advice and guidance from the SENDCo. So I would definitely talk to the teacher first. And they can talk about low-level things that they can do to support. But if they feel it's a bit more complex, they can come to the SENDCo. I don't think people realise that at nurseries, every nursery has a SENDCo as well. So if if your child's not at school age and you have concerns, there's a SENDCo at nursery. So if you speak to the key worker but you want more advice, then that's a good port of call as well. But the teachers really do have a wealth of knowledge, and I think if you think of it as a tiered system, if the teachers feel like they've run out of strategies, then you can come to the SENDCo and ask advice and things. But
amazing. And what are the questions that parents should be asking at school if they suspect their child needs extra support?
I think really it's talking to the school and just working as a bit of a team. What have school noticed? What is on offer? What can they do to support? I just think it's being really open and honest, and the school should be able to kind of clearly talk about what they can offer. And again, there's different tiers. So there's the universal offer we talk about, which is for every single child in school. It doesn't matter who they are, they get high quality teaching, they get access to certain resources, things like that. And then you have more your SEND support, a little bit more targeted. That children can access things like tools to help with dyslexia, maybe sensory aids. They can have interventions, maths, literacy, reading, whatever they might need. It might be a bit of pastoral support. And then the next tier is EHCP, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, which again can be done with much more personalised, might involve a bit of funding. So actually, parents can ask, after the universal offer, what can school offer SEND support wise to support their child? And also what signposting as well. What can I do at home? What can I access out and about? Yeah.
Because there's probably a wealth of information out there and resources that can help. It's just knowing where to find them.
Yeah, totally.
What evidence is useful for a parent to keep? would a journal of behaviours be handy to present to school, especially in a masking situation?
I think don't go overboard and I think the worst thing to do is feel that you have to prove and justify. But if you're coming to school or if you're going to the GP, I do think it's a good idea to have a little list with you, only because when you're in that moment and you've been waiting for this meeting or appointment for a couple of weeks, and you're as a parent pinning loads on it because this is the moment that I can get the help for my child, and then it all goes out of your mind. You're oh God, I didn't mention this or that. So you don't need to take anything to school to chat about your child because you know them better than anybody. But from a reassurance point of view, it's handy just to have some little
reminders. Make sure you get all your points out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a child does not need a diagnosis in order to access support at school.
No.
That's the most important message here, isn't it?
Yeah. Unless it's a medical diagnosis, because we're not going to start giving insulin to someone if we think they might be.
They might be a bit diabetic.
But a good school will support a child and react to the behaviour or the need that they see. And that's not going to make a difference whether a piece of paper says that they have dyslexia or it says that they have autism. As you get further up that tiered system, sometimes the diagnosis does help you unlock kind of access things like an EHCP. But again, it's not essential because the need and the behaviours don't change just because it's on paper.
Yeah. See, I always thought you had to have a concrete diagnosis before you could get an EHCP.
It might swap and change depending on what council that you're with. But even so, like with Torbay Council, if you can prove that a child's on the pathway to
Brilliant.
a diagnosis or they're looking into it, and then you discuss in your evidence when you're writing your applications that they show all the needs linked to that, it's more about how the need impacts their access to their learning and less about what it says on paper. Because again, like with autism, there's such a spectrum.
Yeah.
And you can have like high functioning children who, or children who mask, and actually it doesn't have a massive input, or, you know, they're insanely amazing at maths. So on the flip side, that doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah.
I think schools just need to be responsive about what they see rather than what they
Work on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I've got ADHD. I was diagnosed last year, and I'm a straight A student. You know, school socially was difficult for me, but from an academic point of view, no one ever would have said I had ADHD back then, because I thrived.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember as well, school staff, although we're like spinning a million plates and we're trying to have all the information about everything, we're not doctors, we're not psychologists. So actually, although we don't need a diagnosis, some of the information that might come from those pathways or an educational psychology report or something like that will give us extra information about what we can do. So those processes help us unlock a bit more, but just because a child doesn't have one of those reports or a piece of paper saying it, doesn't mean we can't start the
start
support
the process.
rolling. Yeah.
And that's the important message for this podcast, really, is that I think a lot of parents will think, I certainly thought, that until you get the diagnosis, which can take a long time based on waiting lists, that you can't access support. But what you're saying is that's totally not the case. And actually, the sooner you talk to your teacher, the sooner you start putting that in motion, you can support the child. And actually, that's all you guys want to do, isn't it?
Yeah. Like, I think one thing parents need to know is how much we care. And like, we know as a teacher, we've got 30 of the most important children in the world because they're your babies. They are the most important people to you. And so for us, every child needs something different. One might need help with toileting, one might need reminding to drink, someone needs a dyslexia screening, someone needs to have intervention for the and this and this and this and this and this. And all we're doing is trying our absolute best for your little ones. And we're in don't get me. And we're in a system that makes that hard sometimes. But parents just need, don't wait. Like, if there's something you're worried about, the worst thing you do is, they'll grow out of it. Or we'll wait till year one because that's when things ramp up. And, don't wait, because otherwise that could make things tricky. If you've got a gut feeling about something, just come and talk to school about it, or go and see your GP,
and ask the questions as well, because like we've said before, something may just be a behaviour, it may be an additional need, but if you are worried and you're not sure, ask. And like, you're with those children 5 days a week most of the day, you'll be able to say, actually, this is something I've also noticed, or that doesn't present in the classroom very often. It may just be a behaviour.
And schools have got a different perspective to you, because you might be seeing one 7-year-old every day, whereas we're seeing a class of 30 7-year-olds. So actually we can make that a comparison. We know what's age appropriate, developmentally appropriate, what's not. So for your sanity, come and ask, because we can say, I know that seems a bit odd, a bit different, a bit strange, but do you know how many children do that? It's quite common, and it's because of this. So it's important to come
and a parent would just feel so much better, wouldn't they, in that situation? I know I would. Yeah. So let's talk about EHCPs. What is an EHCP?
An education healthcare plan.
Okay.
It's a legal document. And basically it's comprised with a whole host of evidence from different agencies, health, educational psychology, school, parents, and it brings together in one document the needs of your child and the provision that they need, the support that they need. So it's basically your child in a document, and it's a legally binding document. So the school, the nursery, the secondary school, the alternative provision, whatever it might be, need to put in place the provision. I think the myth about an EHCP is that an EHCP means one-to-one support. It actually doesn't, and that's the furthest thing from the truth.
Okay.
So if it's a huge, long process, it can take, for me, I'm a bit slow. It takes weeks to write them. The school have to write them. Parents can do it as well. Again, I don't think parents realise that if a school aren't confident about putting in a request for an EHCP, parents can actually do their own.
Okay.
But obviously school they know what to do, and they've got all the bits and bobs. So it takes a couple of weeks to write. You submit it. They might say, yes, we'll look into this. No, we won't. And then if they say yes, it takes 20 weeks. So if you start it in the autumn term, you might find you might not get any EHCPs till the summer term. So it can take a long time. But I think what is presumed is that an EHCP means money that will provide a one-to-one. So sometimes plans are issued with a little bit of money. Sometimes they might be issued with a lot of money, and sometimes they're issued with no money.
Yeah.
It doesn't automatically mean money. And to put it into perspective, I would say that maybe a plan might come with, on average, £5,000 to £7,000. The school get a bit of additional money for children with SEN needs, so that might bring it up to £11,000 or £12,000. And a teaching assistant will cost £24,000.
Wow.
So children that do have one-to-one, schools make up the downfall. And everyone wonders why schools don't have any money.
Yeah.
But that's a story for a different day.
Yeah, it's another podcast episode.
Yeah. So that's why you see schools having to get really flexible with EHCPs. We have our own specialist provision at my school where we have children with high need, but they have their own class and an environment, and that's how we manage those. Some people might have 1 to 2 support. It might be 1 to 3. It might just be that a few times a day they have their interventions and things that they need, and they don't have someone with them all the time. So there's like a load of myth busting around EHCPs. But again, your SENDCo should be able to talk to you all about that. And if you feel like maybe the support's not right, there's people that can advise you on that as well.
I guess what the real point is that parents should really come to you and try, and it needs to be like a collaborative relationship where you're working together for the same outcome, but also have like a bit of ability to be adaptable, because you need to try one thing, see if it sticks. If it doesn't, let's have another conversation and try something else. So it's about trying to make sure it's not so black and white, that you don't have these expectations that an EHCP is going to solve your child's problems. And actually, let's see what we can put in place and see if it works. And if it works, we keep on going with it. And if it doesn't, we'll review it and try something else.
And again, I think a lot of messages that parents hear is before that EHCP tier, SEN Support, a lot of parents hear, oh, we can't do that, we can't do this, we can't do that. And actually, no, there's a lot that can be done at that tier before a child needs EHCP. But again, you have to work together, and the expectations need to be realistic. And for parents, it's a bit of understanding. I think sometimes when I talk to parents about that funding and what that looks like, they're like, oh my God, I literally didn't know that.
It's not even half what you need.
No. So, of course, parents are always going to fight to get everything that their child needs, and rightly so.
But you guys are also doing that for their child. That's a really important message. It's not like you're like, we want the funding and it's all shits and gigs.
It's the most frustrating part of my job. But again, don't want to go into that too much.
Another podcast episode. If parents feel dismissed, like, what's the advice you'd give them to try and advocate and fight for themselves and the child?
I say to this to parents all the time, like, you are their biggest cheerleader. You're their voice when maybe they don't have one, quite literally sometimes. Like, you're the only person that can shout it from the rooftops. And all the SENDCos across the country are probably going to get annoyed at me because they'll have parents like badgering. But if you have a genuine concern and you feel like it's not being listened to, you need to keep pounding, keep speaking. I know that in my job, if I've got 20 parents that are waiting for a phone call and one of them's already phoned 5 times that morning, that's probably the one that I'm going to call first. You know, it shouldn't be the case, but you go to the people that you think are in the most need straight away. And And also there are some really useful services. So in Torbay, we have a service called SENDCo. So it is the Special Educational Needs and Disability Information and Support Service.
Brilliant.
There we go.
I think Julie and Danielle mentioned that last week, actually. Yeah.
So they are a service that is very much geared around parents, helping them know what they can ask for, what their rights are, and they will attend meetings with you. So if you feel like you're being dismissed or the right support isn't in place, they will come sit and almost like mediate, but because they've got that legal knowledge, they know what is realistic to ask.
Almost like a union for special educational needs.
And when we've had SENDCo come to our school, they've sat and said, in vice versa, said to the parent, do you know what? It's actually really realistic what they're putting in place, and what you're asking is a bit much. So it kind of works both ways.
Brilliant.
But they're really useful, and they have got a website on the Torbay Council, a webpage on the Torbay Council website, a phone number, an email, whatever.
We'll link that in the notes as well.
They are obviously very in demand, but a really useful place to start.
Do you see a lot of parents like reaching breaking point?
Yeah. I think that in itself is what takes up a lot of my time. That sounds negative. Not that I don't like that bit. It's heart-wrenching. Because again, I think parents wait until it's too hard before asking for the help. And some parents are managing multiple children in their households that might have additional needs. And again, like we said, that Coke bottle effect, like children can hold it all in at school, and then when they get home, it just explodes. And I think sometimes home life can be really challenging. And I think they then come to support from us when it's reached its absolute peak. Whereas there's always things we can put in place before, or signposting or advice and stuff. I think that's a big thing. Just don't wait to ask.
In fact, if you get the ball rolling sooner rather than later, it's going to be such a smoother process for both you and the child. Even if you believe that additional need is like small, or it might not even be an additional need, it might just be a behaviour.
But for them at home, if it's causing distress and upset and like hostility at home or whatever, or I've just had parents come who maybe are anxious people as it is, and the thought of their child struggling with something just makes life unbearable for them as the parent. Why didn't you come sooner to get the reassurance? Like, we could massively change your outlook and help you. So
do you think there's enough support for parents and families that are struggling with SEN needs?
So there's always been a lot of different support in place, but a lot of the systems and kind of support services we used to rely on are kind of folding a little bit at the moment in our local authority. So things are a little bit unsure in terms of what's out there for parents to access, but there are things like the SENDCo support. Most schools have at the moment a family support worker. Again, I don't think people would know that, and so the SENDCo can help with diagnosing need, getting the in-school support, giving advice at home, but the family support worker can literally help with everything outside of school. So it might be parenting, it might be routine, it might be diet, it could be sleep, it could be like toileting, signpost, housing, like everything.
Wow.
And so I think schools are doing more to bring that parent support in-house, because there isn't always a lot to access, or maybe there is, but you have to tick the right criterion boxes. So
it's crazy, isn't it, that you're basically, like I said before, a teacher, a social worker, a housing officer, a psychologist. Like you're trying to manage so many different aspects. It's not just, going in, teaching the curriculum, leaving at 3:30 and then having 6 weeks off.
And also being mindful that we're doing all those things, but we're not all those things. So giving advice that we think is right, but it's not the wrong advice, or overstepping the mark, and making sure parents know what. So I'm not a doctor, or I'm not, and I think we have to be really mindful as well that we're trying to help parents in all these different aspects, but at the same time, we're not the experts.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
crazy.
I know.
So let's talk about from an education setting point of view, like what pressure are you guys under right now in school?
It's like, I don't think there's a word that can describe. It's a lot. And I think, each year it kind of gets a little bit more, and we try our best within schools, within trusts, to kind of manage it. The problem solving and the outside of the box thinking that goes on behind the scenes is another level, because we care and we want to do the best for children, even though budgets might be cut or we're down to a skeleton staff. Like when I started teaching a long time ago, every class had a teaching assistant, and then if there were children with needs, there might be more. So some classes might have 3 adults in there if the need was there. But now we're at the point, and again, it's a national thing, where maybe 3 classes might be sharing 1 teaching assistant, and there are children with additional needs thrown into the mix as well. It's just, I think those restraints make it difficult, but it's all about the outside of the box thinking, the problem solving. We'll get there.
It's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you are bound by your guidelines and policies, and I expect the government change them all the time, and then you're having to adapt and retrain, and all you're trying to do is facilitate these kids getting the education that they deserve. Yeah. And you're almost got your hands tied behind your back with what you can do. Yeah. And then I think, do you find you then become like the soundboard for the frustration of parents?
Because we're the only ones really that the parents have direct contact with. So actually, if I've referred a child for ADHD, that referral will go off. Someone somewhere looks at it and decides yay or nay. Then a letter comes through, and then I'm the person that speaks to the parents, and so that frustration comes straight for us. Or if a child, someone's applied for an EHCP for a child, and that goes off. There are people within those teams that connect with parents, but when it gets down to the real nitty-gritty emotions at the disappointment, we're the ones that see that. And I think I'm lucky that parents don't blame me necessarily. They know that that's out of my hands, but the raw emotions still come to us.
It's a lot for you to deal with, isn't it?
It's hard, yeah.
What changes do you think desperately need to happen in order for you guys to have less pressure, parents to have more support, children to have better help?
I think the changes I would like don't exist. We just need a magic pot of money, don't we?
Yeah.
It all comes down to money, and that's awful. Doesn't all come down, I definitely think at my school we're so good at thinking about what little tweaks can we make that aren't cost-free. Like, for example, we've got a lot of children that are suffering with school-based avoidance because of anxiety. So our pastoral team come in 20 minutes early and do a little breakfast club with those guys so they can come in. And it's little things. Yeah. But in the grand scheme, I would love for every child that needs it to get the funding or whatever that matched what they need in school. And that's difficult. I also think there needs to be more out there for parents with the parenting, not just you go on this parenting course, tick. People that can come and be with them at home and show them what to do, and that used to be the case, but it's kind of flitting away a little bit now. It's difficult.
It's almost like all of these services are almost not deemed important enough to fund, so they're just kind of dropping away.
I just think every sector, you hear it at the hospital, you hear it with policing, every single sector is in the same situation that schools are. So whether you're a health sector or you're within the council or you're within social care, things are getting tighter and tighter and tighter. So it's if, only people at the top criteria might get that support because there isn't the bodies left to go out and deliver the services to. I honestly think that no one's doing it on purpose. Yeah. I think that's a really important thing to remember, and it's so stressful, but no one's actively saying we don't want to give you this service.
Well, it's the system that's broken. It's not the people within the system, isn't it? And that's the same, like you say, within everything, and hence why we have started this podcast, because we want to bring the information, we want to bring the resources and the support, and what questions should you ask, and basically give everyone the confidence to fight for what they need. What gives you hope in the SEN world?
The children give me the hope. I just think that it's lovely seeing staff who are, as years go on, becoming more and more understanding, more and more creative with how they're working with children. And even things like I said, we have our own kind of specialist provision now. We have like 7, 8 children within that provision who would really struggle in mainstream, but we are able to give them a mainstream education, even though their needs are really, really high. And some of those children probably would benefit from going to specialist provision. But again, they're full to the rafters, so that might not be possible. So I think it's, if you kind of step back from the scary big picture and just narrow in, like seeing the work that staff are doing with the children on the daily gives you hope. Like there are people that really care about your kiddos, like all of them, and we're trying so hard. And
that's important, isn't it? That parents really know that they can come to you guys, they need to ask the questions, they need to build a collaborative relationship with you guys, because the end goal from everyone is the same thing, to make sure that your child can have the best shot at their education, no matter what that looks like. Adapt it, change it, get the resources, funding if we can. But let's just do this together and figure it out as we go.
And although it might not feel like it, just know that behind the scenes in your school or the child's trust, there's people who are racking their brains all of the time to make things better, even though the funding might not be there. And that gives you a bit of hope as well. It's not even like, you know, the people at the top of those ladders are thinking, oh, well, you know, we'll just do without that. You know, everybody is working hard to think, okay, well, how can we make the best of what we've got?
And I suppose it's only going to keep improving if everyone is thinking outside the box and adapting all the time. So, you know, there are things that you guys are doing that will help. Let's do a quick true or false.
Oh, God. Okay.
Round. Right. True or false? You need a diagnosis before schools can help.
No.
Completely false, guys. Good grades mean a child can't have special educational needs.
No, we talked about masking.
Straight A student with a degree, still got ADHD. Girls are better at masking than boys.
I think they are better at it.
Just generally better at everything anyway.
But we're true. But we're still getting groups of boys that are coming up through that we wouldn't think. So
there you go. Yeah. Children with special educational needs are naughty.
No.
False, false, false.
No.
Everybody's getting a diagnosis now.
It feels like it. It does feel like it. But again, the people giving the diagnosis, they're not going to give them to people willy-nilly. I just think the awareness is rising. So if people are getting them, there's a process they have to go through. It's not just handed on a plate.
There you go, guys. There is the download on SEN in primary school. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your insights and information. We will link in the show notes all of the services that we've talked about today and additional charities and services that you can access to help you get support for your children. But please take the message today that speaking to your teacher, being open, being honest, asking the questions is the way forward sooner rather than later. Do not think that your child isn't bad enough or maybe that you're overthinking it. For your own peace of mind, please go into your school and ask. We also have our Patreon membership, and we will be adding to our We Missed The Memo vault so many SEN resources, including downloadable question forms with all of the questions and points you can take into your school and ask, lots of resources on how to spot certain symptoms and whether you should be speaking to your teacher or not. So head over to the link in the show notes to join our Patreon community now. There's so many other things you can get, bonus episodes every week, our girls group chat. We go a little bit extra and deeper with our questions. Our experts will be answering your one-to-one questions that need a little bit more privacy than on the gram and on YouTube. So head over to the link and join our Patty community now. And as ever, please remember to like and subscribe. But Jack is pointing at me because I am just about to forget to do the photo. And I have got it written on my notes as well to not forget. We have a little tradition on the pod where we ask our speakers to bring a little pic of them as a little bubba. So I think you flash at camera number 1.
My picture. Oh, cute. If I say so myself.
Zoom, 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 Jack. Oh, cute, cute, cute. So have a little look at your picture.
Oh,
little Hannah. Cute. If you could go back.
Don't you get emotional.
She's my best friend. I can't. If you could go back and say one thing to little Hannah, what would it be?
I would say that you won't always have a cheerleader in your life. You will at times, but sometimes you won't. And you'll meet amazing cheerleaders for you, but you get to be the cheerleader for a lot of amazing children, and that'll fill a little gap for you.
Give me a second. Well, I wasn't going to cry today, like I schedule it. I think that I would say to little Hannah,
Oh,
you're stronger than you know, you're braver than you think, and you are way more capable than anyone has ever made you believe. That's what I would say to you.
thanks.
We've had a little bestie moment there, sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, like and subscribe on every channel, and we will be back next week with another expert guest we can't wait to talk to. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.